And if you look, you can see some of the paths that people would go to the encampment.
New tonight, a mid-Michigan woman is sharing her story about how she ended up living in a tent city. It began with a personal loss, leading to problems that eventually landed her in jail. But hers is also a story of redemption, thanks to the welcoming hand of a newfound friend who understands how personal battles can derail one's life. But the path back has limited options for her and other homeless people because of high housing prices and shelters that are already full.
This is your day to tell your story, my dear. This has been your life for what, 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I couldn't ever fathom having to do this day in and day out. Just even days going and seeing these folks in their struggle. They just need help.
I just thank God every day I made it. I really do.
Two women tied together by unforgiving streets.
Doing it for him. You bring attention to everything.
One brought here along the banks of the Saginaw River by shame.
Been rough. I committed a crime. And I never been in trouble with the law. I was put in jail, did my time. And this is how I thought I deserved to live. You think you deserve what you get, bad or good.
The other by a personal mission.
Because I can only imagine the things that my brother had lived throughout the course of his life with his addiction. But I knew he was a person and that he just needed love when he needed it and on his terms. He was paranoid schizophrenic, so there was no emotional connection to people. At the end of the day, losing him last year, I've been on a different mission to just help.
A few months ago, that mission called Tracy Zane here, just past Bay City's Liberty Bridge, up over the East Side Railroad tracks and into the thick of the woods, uncovering a community that needed help and a soul that needed healing.
I don't know if you can see it, but that's one of the paths that led to my tent.
Feeling trapped by her circumstances and chained to her past, Brenda Buckhorn was ready to give up.
She's my angel out of the blue. I had a bad day. Ted had just beat me, and I was gonna do myself in. She just appears. And ever since then, everything good's been happening.
A light in her darkness. Years earlier, a tragic crash had killed her husband and critically injured their daughters just days before her father's death. Prescribed painkillers later seemed like a cure for her immense grief, before causing even more loss, forcing her to battle her addiction on the streets for 3 years, much of them in this so-called tent city.
It's not easy, but we all survived. And we worked as a community here. Cooking dinners, hauling water.
But this September, that community of roughly 24 people was asked to leave the private property.
There's nowhere for them. And I thank God every day I found a place.
So I do believe that the problem is going to get more severe over the next several years.
Someone who knows all too well about the struggle to find people a place to stay, Dan Streeter, CEO of Rescue Ministries of Mid-Michigan. He says there's a whole list of reasons contributing to soaring demand. Pandemic-backed rent assistance is starting to dry up, meaning some will no longer be able to afford their homes. A spike in property values during the pandemic means there are fewer affordable rentals. As a result, even people who have the financial means to get a place of their own can't move out of the shelter. And in turn, that causes rescue mission shelter stays to increase, going from 35 days to now 47 days, and preventing others from being able to get a bed. And finally, there are many reasons for why someone may end up without a home, several of which require more solutions of their own, like mental health care and substance use disorder.
It takes a community. Because there's so many layers to what's happening, it takes rebuilding a life in order to be able to do so, but no one entity can be the solution either.
My concern was what can we do to help people so they don't end up at the mission, or after they've left the mission, how can we help them?
Pastor Mary Johnson welcoming those with nowhere else to turn for practical needs.
Cleaning products, laundry soap, diapers, feminine hygiene products, shampoos, basically items that you need every day that you can't get with a bridge card.
Her organization, the Great Lakes Dream Center, providing a beacon of hope and help amid soaring demand.
It's definitely changed over the last few years, and the fact that the mission is constantly full and people are having to put on a waiting list is one of the biggest factors right now. And that is exacerbated because the people who are there can't get their vouchers or can't get housing. And so the housing is the biggest issue right now.
And that lack of shelter space and affordable housing means the area's encampments, which have been around for years and years, are now home to people left with no other options.
So the biggest shift that we've seen now is the fact that the encampments have grown and they're with people who really don't want to be there.
When I talk to some of the people that deal with it more closely than law enforcement does, they seem to think it's growing, but it's always been a pretty big issue in this area.
Bay City's Director of Public Safety says despite the growing homeless population, it hasn't caused a concerning rise in crime aside from the occasional call. And unlike other communities, he says the city has no plans to enact vagrancy laws.
When you're just trying to get by and down on your luck, that's not anything we want to criminalize or give them a worse time than they already have.
For Brenda, she's now moving upstream with support at her side.
I have plans, I have goals. I want to be the person I was before all this. And with the help of Tracy and the community, I'm getting there. I'm really getting there.
The waters that once reflected her brokenness,
Things are looking up.
now giving her a bridge to a new beginning.
And it's beautiful. Life is changing for the better. And I don't have that guilt anymore because I've done my time.
The need has driven multiple organizations across Bay City to come together at one table to find solutions. While more affordable housing is a long-term goal, short-term, there's been lots of discussion about opening an overnight drop-in center to at least get people out of the elements. And if you'd like to find out more about any of the organizations in this story, including Tracy's humanitarian effort, go to this story on WNEM.com.